The malls in this country are doomed. And that's the subject of today's Idea of the Day. If you follow business news, you probably have heard of how much retail is hurting these days. I mean, malls are almost like the poster child for what's wrong with business in this country right now. For instance, and I have a solution for this, so I'm not just ranting here. I actually have some solutions. The problem with retail today is statistically, it's been said that just about every major retail, statistic right now is dismal. Just about every major, Sears is doing poorly, JCPenney, almost every major retailer is doing poorly. They're having a decline, in some cases single digits, some cases double digits, and in some cases it's like in the case of a company like Sears, they're just about gone. Meanwhile, while all this is going on, Amazon is literally at like 1,000%. They're doing like 10 times better overall than they did in the previous years. So obviously there's a shift to online. So you could almost say, well, the problem with malls these days is that there's too much competition with online retailing. But that's only really scratching the surface. And I give you one of my solutions. I remember in the early days of malls, where they were starting to become popular, let's say in the late 60s, early 70s, when I went to the mall near me, and I'm from Staten Island, they had just opened the Staten Island Mall around 1974 or somewhere in that ballpark. And if you walk through that mall at that time, there were, if I had to put a number on it, at least 50% of the merchants were local merchants, meaning they weren't big chain stores. You didn't have like Abercrombie and Fitch and all these big names just filling up the whole Aeropostale, Guess, whatever other. You didn't have all that. You really had local people with their own business in that mall. I mean, there were hundreds of stores, and they had anchor stores like a Sears or a Macy's, but for the most part, at least 50% of the stores were local merchants. Now, fast forward a bunch of years, as the malls became more corporatized, there was a point in my particular mall where I remember there was only one store in the entire mall. We're talking hundreds of stores. There was only one store in that mall that was still an independent guy, an independent merchant who was local, who created a store, a one-of-a-kind store in that mall. And I remember vividly, must have been in the late 80s, maybe early 90s, them putting up a sign saying, basically, we're being forced out. We're not welcome. They don't want local merchants anymore. And I thought that was kind of nasty for a mall to be able to have that kind of power, to literally force out the local merchants. And where I fast forward to that mall today, and I know to this day there are still no local merchants, with one exception. Local merchants are allowed to have those little push carts, as if they're second-class citizens in a third world country, that's the way they kind of have to panhandle with what is considered to be the empty or common areas. This is space they wouldn't have rented out by the foot anyway, so they put these little wheelie carts, look like overblown food vendors. And that's what they allow the local merchants to do. So here we are in this environment where they're essentially taking away all these local stores from malls, and now the big companies, the big chains, they're having trouble. If you ask me, what they really need to do is bring back the local merchants to the shopping malls. Every single mall should have at least a certain percentage of their space. I don't know if they can do this through a law, but at least through common sense, let local businesses thrive in the malls, because they have the ability to build community, to build people's trust in that community, to get them to come to the mall. And maybe some of them will still shop in the bigger places, but the bottom line is they need to have more local merchants in the malls. And that also goes for food, because that's another area that has become almost 100% corporatized. I mean, every single place in there that has food is a franchise fast food establishment with almost nothing that is a local merchant, like a regular pizzeria. Instead, you end up with a chain pizzeria. They need to have more local businesses like that in there. I saw a shimmer of hope in the mall that I go to. They have an area behind that where they had all these big box, I don't call them big box, all these large scale, Outback, TGI Fridays, Panera Bread, and they actually opened the door for a local business to be there. That was like earth-shattering to me. And I'll tell you one thing, that particular location is the one that's booming. So for today's idea today, let's bring local back to the mall. All right, so that's today's idea today. I hope you liked it. If you visit ideaoftheday.com, you'll see a new one every day. Every day. Yeah, some of them don't suck. And don't forget to subscribe. And you can see them here every day. Brand new one. And some of my videos don't suck either.